Well, I did it. I went and bought my first ever actual camera. So I'm still filming this on my iPhone right now because this camera is not great for doing this kind of thing. But anyway, let me introduce you. This is a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 4K. And I did a lot of research on cameras before deciding to buy this one in particular. And I got this one for a whole bunch of reasons, but I think one of the main ones is it's a proper cinema camera, not a photo camera that can also do film. But also all the reviews were really good, and I did a ton of research on this thing. I looked at a lot of footage side by side with other cameras, including like Red cameras and Arri Alexas, and it really comes out really well for the money. So I figured bang for buck, if I want to start making cinematic movies and I want to start with a good camera, then this is really the way to go. I've got a small rig half cage for it so I can bolt things on. And I got this, this is a Samsung T5 hard drive. I got this after realizing that cameras at this level generate much bigger files than I'm used to working with, and I need decent storage. So I could get some SD drives, but I think I'd run out of space quite quickly. And the things like CFast cards that this can also use are just really expensive on like a cost per gigabyte basis. But this seemed to be overall the most cost-effective way of doing it. And so far, the camera's amazing. So here's some footage from the first time I used it. This was at a band practice and a band recording that we do for our church every week. And the footage that you've seen, this is pretty much straight out the box. I don't know enough about cameras to really work the white balance and the ISO and the shutter speed and stuff. I just don't know that much. I'm learning, but this is pretty much switch on point, and that's the footage it comes up with. And it's really good, it's gorgeous. Now you might be seeing that this is all in slow-mo, and that brings me to some of the drawbacks of this camera. So when we were recording, and this was my first experience with the camera, first of all, it decided to set itself to 60 frames per second in capture, but 24 frames per second in playback. Now, I don't know how I managed to get it to do that, but I didn't know how to get it to undo that either, because stuff was grayed out and it wouldn't let me choose to go back to 24 in and 24 out. Overall, the menu system on this is fantastic, and it's one of the reasons why I bought the camera. Because I'm such a newbie with cameras, any camera I get is going to be a steep learning curve. But with this, you've just got one button, and once you're on it, the menu system is really easy. And it was easy for me to play around with and try and figure out what does what. And I've actually learned a lot about what cameras do and why just by going into this thing and playing about, which I'm not always brave enough to do with menus that have lots and lots of deep dives and lots of paging in and then exiting back out, because you get lost. This thing is so easy to find your way around in, and that's one of the main advantages. And I knew that going in, and it's one of the reasons I bought this. So I would say, if you want to learn how to do filmmaking, this is actually a really great camera to do that with. The other main downside to this camera is, and if you've seen reviews of this, you'll already know, the battery. I mean, I didn't realize just how quickly this thing eats batteries. You'll see some reviews saying it'll last like 40 minutes on a battery, but if you're using an external drive like this, that's extra power, you're doing well to last 20 minutes of recording from this. And I had one particular issue, which was that during this recording session, it kept switching itself off, and I didn't know what the problem was. So I looked it up, and apparently it's not just the amount of power in the batteries, it's how fast they relay their charge into the camera. Proper Canon batteries do the job well, but the one that came supplied with the camera didn't. It wasn't offloading enough power into the camera to feed the camera and the drive, and the camera was just shutting off. Now, I'd bought some aftermarket batteries because I'd read all the reviews saying that it eats them alive. So I bought some aftermarket ones, and they've been performing just fine. They're not Canon, but they're not the one that came with the camera, and they perform much better. So the battery that comes with the camera, if you use an external drive or anything else that draws power, it seems that that's just not going to be enough. In case you're wondering what lens I'm using, it's a Panasonic Lumix 25mm f1.7 ASPH. I'm looking over here because that's where the box is for it. It's my first ever lens, and I don't know enough about lenses to know anything, but I know that it's kind of the micro four thirds version of the Nifty 50, so I'm told. So why am I not using this camera to do this blog right now? Well, that's one of the other kind of shortcomings of it, is that it doesn't have any usable autofocus. I mean, it does have autofocus, but it's pretty useless. and as far as I can see, you have to push a button on the back for it to autofocus. So if it's pointing at me like this camera is now, and I move around and I move out of focus, this won't catch up, it won't do anything, and I'll just literally go out of focus. So although it does have an extra record button on the front for blogging, it's actually not a camera that you would want to blog with. Also, it's got a bunch of inputs which are great. So you've got an XLR mic input, but you've also got a 3.5mm. Now all the microphones that I've got are these cheap Amazon lav mics. They're like 20, 30 quid. And they all do go in here, but getting them to work with this is really, really difficult. Firstly, the preamps in here don't seem to be very good, so you've really got to boost the signal in order to be able to hear what's going on, which if you boost the signal, it increases the hiss and the fuzz, and it's not wonderful. There's also a bit of a menu issue with this, which I had to look up on YouTube how to fix it, which is that when you go into this, it only gives you the option for line level, which is much, much quieter. It doesn't actually give you the option for mic level input until you go on the right, and then you page through those options, and then you'll find mic, and then you do the one on the left, and then you'll find mic. If you don't do that, there's actually no option to use a lav mic at all. I tried so many and I was getting zero volume. I figured out how to do it now, but it's still not great. So honestly, if I'm filming with this, I'm recording the audio separately and syncing in post, which isn't ideal, but it works. And that's it. Look for my first short that I've produced coming out very, very soon. It should be out in the next couple of weeks. It's all been shot. I'm just editing it now and being a perfectionist. So my first short film is coming out now. I'm hoping to film the next one on the 23rd of October, and that'll be up by the end of October. And hopefully before Christmas, I'll be shooting the first scenes of my first feature film. Yes, indeed. But look out for more videos on what I learned from making my first short film, some news on who I'm bringing into my production crew, some amazing stories that I picked up from doing this first short film, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So thank you for sticking with me so far. If you've got any questions about the camera, feel free to shoot them through. I will answer what I can. Anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for sticking with me, guys, and hope to see you in the next video. Bye-bye.